To handle disrespect like a Stoic warrior is to realize that an insult is not a wound, but a test of your internal strength, a moment where the world tries to drag you down into the mud of emotion while you choose to remain standing on the mountain of reason, transforming a potential conflict into a demonstration of your absolute self-mastery. 1. The realization that disrespect is a reflection of the giver, not the receiver. The first and most vital step is to understand the Stoic principle that people do not see the world as it is, but as they are, meaning that when someone insults you, they are merely revealing the chaos, the insecurity, and the lack of discipline inside their own mind. And by realizing that their words are just vibrations in the air, powered by their own internal misery, you lose the desire to be offended, looking at them not with anger, but with the same calm pity a doctor feels for a patient who is delirious with fever. 2. The weaponization of strategic silence. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, the Stoic warrior knows that silence is the most terrifying and powerful response to disrespect. Because when you refuse to bark back at a dog, the dog realizes its barking has no power over you. And by maintaining a calm, unblinking silence in the face of an insult, you force the disrespecter to sit with their own toxicity, making them feel small and foolish while you maintain the high ground of the inner citadel, where no external word can ever enter without your permission. 3. The application of the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, the slave-turned-philosopher, taught that our greatest power lies in knowing what is ours and what is not. And since you cannot control the tongue of another person, but you have 100% control over your own reaction, becoming mentally dangerous means you refuse to hand over the keys to your happiness to a stranger, realizing that if you get angry at an insult, you have effectively become that person's slave, allowing them to dictate your heartbeat and your mood with a single sentence. 4. Premeditatio malorum. Mentally armoring yourself against rudeness. Every morning, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius would tell himself that he would meet meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, and jealous people. And by visualizing this disrespect before it even happened, he removed the element of surprise, ensuring that when he was eventually disrespected, he didn't panic or rage because he had already defeated that person in his mind hours ago, turning a brutal social encounter into a predicted event that he was fully prepared to handle with grace and cold logic. 5. The view from above perspective shift. When someone disrespects you, your ego tries to make the moment feel like the end of the world. But the Stoic warrior zooms out their mind until they see themselves as a tiny speck on a tiny planet in an infinite universe, a perspective that makes the loudest insult sound like a faint whisper in a hurricane, instantly draining the power out of the disrespect and allowing you to move forward with a sense of cosmic calm that makes you look like a giant among men. 6. The art of turning an insult into a self-diagnostic tool. Instead of being hurt, the Stoic warrior asks, is there truth in what they said? And if the disrespect contains a grain of truth, you thank the person for the free feedback and use it to improve yourself. But if it is a lie, you simply ignore it as you would ignore the buzzing of a fly, because a person who is rooted in their own character and truth cannot be moved by the false opinions of those who do not know the depth of their soul. 7. The mastery of the non-reactive mask. To be truly dangerous in social dynamics, you must develop a face that reveals nothing, a calm and steady expression that remains unchanged whether you are being praised or insulted, signaling to everyone that your self-worth is generated internally and is not subject to the market value of public opinion. A level of detachment that makes you an enigma that people fear to disrespect, because they know they can never get the satisfaction of a reaction out of you. 8. The lethal power of Stoic wit and self-deprecation. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius and the philosopher Epictetus both understood that the fastest way to disarm a bully is to refuse to take yourself too seriously. So when someone hurls an insult at you, instead of defending your ego, you agree with them and add something even worse about yourself, saying something like, if they knew my other faults, they wouldn't have stopped at these. A move that instantly kills the conflict because you have stolen their only weapon, their ability to offend you, leaving them standing in a vacuum of their own making while you maintain total psychological dominance. 9. The realization that the best revenge is to not be like your enemy. When someone treats you with rudeness, their goal is to pull you down to their level and make you as miserable, bitter, and undisciplined as they are. But the Stoic warrior recognizes this trap and decides that the ultimate victory is to remain virtuous, calm, and dignified, proving that while they may have the power to speak, they do not have the power to change who you are, making your continued excellence the most brutal and silent punishment they could ever receive. 10. The mastery of the inner fortress and emotional immunity. You must realize that no one can hurt your soul or your character unless you allow them to. As Stoicism teaches that I have been harmed is merely a thought, and if you delete the thought, the harm disappears, turning you into a person who can walk through a crowd of screaming critics with the same calm as if you were walking through a field of flowers, because your self-worth is locked inside an inner citadel where no stranger's opinion is allowed to enter. 11. Responding with calculated kindness to shatter the ego. Sometimes the most mentally dangerous way to handle an aggressor is to respond with genuine, cold, and calm kindness, treating their outburst with the same patience you would give a crying child, which creates a massive psychological imbalance where the aggressor feels like a savage in the presence of a king, a tactic that often makes them feel a deep sense of shame without you ever having to raise your voice or say a single mean word. 12. The strategy of devaluing the source. Why would you care about the opinion of someone you don't respect? A person who lacks self-control, wisdom, and integrity. For the Stoic warrior knows that the praise of a fool is worthless, and therefore the criticism of a fool is equally meaningless. So by looking at the source of the disrespect and realizing their character is beneath your standards, you instantly neutralize the weight of their words, treating them like the buzzing of an insect that is annoying but ultimately harmless to a giant. 13. The command of radical accountability for your peace. To be a Stoic warrior is to accept that if you are upset by an insult, it is not the other person's fault, but your own fault for being so fragile that a few words could disturb your peace. A realization that forces you to stop being a victim and start being a master, constantly training your mind so that you become a black hole for negativity, where insults go in, but nothing, not even a flinch, ever comes out. 14. The wisdom of the final refusal to participate. Finally, you must master the power of the final refusal, which is the understanding that you are under no obligation to participate in a conflict that is beneath your dignity. So when someone tries to bait you into an argument or a fight, you simply choose to walk away or ignore them entirely, not out of fear, but out of the profound realization that your time and energy are too sacred to be wasted on someone who only seeks to steal them for their own ego. 15. The strategy of emotional anesthesia and the death of the ego. A Stoic warrior becomes truly dangerous when they have performed a surgical removal of their ego, realizing that the only reason an insult hurts is because you have a part of yourself that still craves the validation of others. And by intentionally killing that need, you become emotionally anesthetized to the venom of others, allowing you to watch someone scream at you or mock you with the same detached curiosity as a scientist watching a frantic insect behind a glass jar, a level of coldness that makes you a psychological ghost whom no one can truly haunt. 16. The alchemical transformation of venom into fuel. Instead of letting disrespect drain your energy, you must practice a form of mental alchemy, where you take the negative energy thrown at you and immediately convert it into a silent, burning fire to fuel your work, your workout, or your mission, so that every time someone tells you that you are nothing or that you will fail, you don't argue with them, but you thank them in your mind for providing the extra adrenaline you needed to outwork everyone else, making the disrespecter an accidental contributor to your inevitable success. 17. The execution of the social death penalty. There is a form of Stoic shunning that is far more lethal than any verbal comeback, which involves treating the person who disrespects you with such absolute, total indifference that they effectively cease to exist in your reality, meaning you don't look at them, you don't talk about them, and you don't even harbor anger toward them, because anger is a form of connection, and by cutting that connection entirely, you leave the other person screaming into a void, which is the most soul-crushing experience a person seeking attention can ever face. 18. The mastery of the commander's gaze and nonverbal dominance. Handling disrespect like a warrior involves understanding that 90% of your power is projected through your eyes and your posture, so when someone tries to belittle you, you simply look them directly in the eyes with a calm, heavy, and unblinking gaze, the commander's gaze, not out of aggression, but out of a deep, centered peace that signals you are completely unaffected, a visual cue that almost always forces the aggressor to look away first as their subconscious realizes they are dealing with a predator who cannot be startled. 19. The dichotomy of the sage and the soldier. You must learn to walk the line between the sage who forgives out of wisdom and the soldier who sets boundaries out of strength, realizing that you can forgive a person's ignorance in your heart while still removing them from your life with surgical precision to protect your inner citadel, a balance that ensures you remain a person of virtue who is also dangerously intolerant of anything that threatens your mental peace or your sacred time. 20. The sovereign indifference to fame and shame. The Stoic warrior understands that public shaming and public praise are two sides of the same counterfeit coin, and by becoming a person who is truly indifferent to what the crowd thinks, you gain the superpower of being able to do what is right and what is logical, even when 1,000 voices are shouting that you are wrong, making you a leader who cannot be swayed by the matrix of social media trends or the fickle nature of public opinion. 21. The finality of the Stoic boundary and the power of the clean cut. Finally, you must master the art of the clean cut, which is the ability to walk away from a toxic environment or a disrespectful person without a single backward glance, no long explanations, no dramatic arguments, and no second chances for those who have proven they lack the character to be in your presence, a level of finality that signals to the world that your time is a limited, high-value resource that is only available to those who have earned the right to stand beside a warrior. 22. The execution of psychological aikido. Instead of resisting the force of disrespect with a counterattack, the Stoic warrior leans into it with a calm, almost curious acceptance that makes the aggressor trip over their own hostility, essentially using their negative momentum to expose their lack of self-control to everyone watching, a tactic that turns their attack into a public demonstration of your superior emotional intelligence. 23. The shift from anger to philosophical pity. You must learn to view the person disrespecting you not as a rival, but as a patient or a child who is suffering from a fever of ignorance, shifting your internal state from feeling attacked to feeling a profound sense of medicinal pity for a soul that is so out of alignment with nature that it finds pleasure in toxicity, a perspective that instantly replaces your defensive rage with a cold, detached compassion that leaves you entirely unbothered. 24. The implementation of the high-value filter. Treat every interaction like a high-level security clearance for your mind, where only those who have proven their wisdom and integrity are allowed to even influence your mood, effectively making the disrespect of low-value people as irrelevant and ignorable as the white noise between radio stations. A filter that ensures your inner citadel is never breached by the opinions of those who don't have the character to be in your presence. 25. The sovereign power of the explained less no. As a Stoic warrior, you realize that you possess the divine right to simply say no to any toxic conversation or disrespectful interaction without offering a single word of explanation or apology, a boundary so thick and final that it creates a natural repulsion field for bullies and manipulators who quickly realize that you are a person who cannot be baited, teased, or pulled into their mud wrestling games. 26. Transcending the level of insult. Marcus Aurelius famously taught that the sun does not stop shining just because someone curses it. And by identifying yourself with your higher reason, the sun, you realize that an insult can only reach you if you lower yourself to the level of the person speaking it, meaning that as long as you stay rooted in your own virtue, the disrespect remains on a lower plane of existence, unable to even graze the edges of your soul. 27. The weapon of quiet humility versus arrogant pride. True Stoic power is not found in a loud ego that demands respect, but in a quiet humility that knows its own worth so deeply that it feels absolutely no need to defend it. A state of being where you are so comfortable being nothing in the eyes of fools that you become everything in the eyes of the wise. A paradoxical strength that makes you truly dangerous because you have nothing left to prove to anyone. 28. Final mastery of the sovereign internal citadel. Ultimately, handling disrespect like a warrior means you have realized that your mind is the only place you truly live. And by making that place so logical, so beautiful, and so peaceful through constant practice, you find that the wars and insults of the outside world are just harmless shadow plays that have no power over the king who sits firmly upon the throne of his own disciplined mind, transforming you into a person who is not just handling disrespect, but has become entirely undeniably untouchable. 29. The strategy of the spectator effect and winning the onlooker. A Stoic warrior understands that when someone disrespects you in public, they are not just attacking you, but they are performing a character test in front of an audience. And by remaining absolutely calm, silent, and dignified, you allow the aggressor to hang themselves with their own lack of control, effectively winning the respect of everyone watching, while the person shouting looks like a weak, undisciplined child who has lost the war of social status. 30. The power of inquisitive disarmament to expose insecurity. Instead of defending yourself, you become a dangerous investigator of the insult, looking at the person with genuine, calm curiosity and asking a simple, soft question like, "Are you okay? You seem very troubled." A move that instantly shifts the frame from you being insulted to them being mentally unstable, forcing them to either explain their toxicity or retreat in a state of deep psychological confusion. 31. The radical acceptance of universal human flaws. Marcus Aurelius taught that to be surprised by a person's rudeness is as foolish as being surprised that a fig tree produces figs. So by accepting that a certain percentage of people are naturally broken, insecure, and disrespectful, you remove the sting of the event because you realize it is just a law of nature, and you don't get angry at the wind for blowing, just as a Stoic warrior doesn't get angry at a fool for acting like a fool. 32. The final severance of the need for external validation. You must achieve a level of dangerous self-containment where you have absolutely zero emotional hooks left for the world to grab. A state where you are so deeply rooted in your own internal approval that the praise of a king and the insult of a beggar sound exactly the same, like meaningless noise, giving you a level of social freedom and power that most men can only dream of. 33. The sovereign silence of the mountain in the storm. Imagine yourself as a massive, ancient mountain and the person disrespecting you as a passing thunderstorm that is loud, dark, and seemingly powerful. Yet the mountain does not move, does not argue with the clouds, and does not try to stop the rain, because the mountain knows that the storm is temporary while the mountain is eternal. A perspective that allows you to outlast any conflict simply by existing in a state of unshakable stability. 34. The strategy of strategic forgetfulness as a form of dominance. Holding a grudge is a sign that someone still has power over your mind. So the Stoic warrior practices the ultimate form of disrespect toward the aggressor, forgetting they ever spoke, a mental deletion that proves their words were so insignificant that they didn't even leave a scratch on your memory, leaving the other person desperate for the relevance that only your anger could have given them. 35. The final Stoic shield. Apathy as a fortress of divinity. Ultimately, to handle disrespect like a warrior is to reach a state of ataraxia, total tranquility, where you realize that no one can actually disrespect you, because respect is a social construct that you have chosen to stop participating in, making you a sovereign entity who sits on a throne of pure reason, looking down at the wars of egos with a faint, knowing smile that says you have already won the only war that matters, the war for your own soul. 36. The strategy of the psychological mirror. When someone hurls an insult at you, instead of absorbing the blow, you become a perfectly polished surface of cold, silent attention, reflecting their own ugliness back at them with such clarity that they are forced to confront the monster in their own soul, a move that turns their attack into a moment of unbearable self-shame while you remain an untouched observer of their internal collapse. 37. The sovereign command of premeditated indifference. You must reach a level of mental preparation where you have already pre-dismissed the opinions of 99% of the world, realizing that if you wouldn't take advice from a person, you should never take their insults to heart, effectively creating a social ghost status where you can walk through a room of critics and feel absolutely nothing, because in your mind, their voices have already been categorized as background noise, no different from the hum of an air conditioner or the sound of distant traffic. 38. The lethal power of philosophical shadowing. When faced with disrespect, you don't fight back. You shadow the aggressor's emotions with a level of calm that is so deep it feels eerie, making them realize that while they are drowning in their own rage, you are breathing perfectly at the bottom of the ocean, a psychological gap that signals a terrifying level of self-mastery and makes the aggressor feel as though they are attacking a ghost or a god who simply cannot be touched by human weapons. 39. The execution of the king's mercy. To handle disrespect like a true warrior king is to possess the power to destroy someone's reputation or ego, but to choose to simply ignore them instead, not out of weakness, but out of a profound stoic mercy that realizes the person is already being punished by their own lack of character, a level of restrained power that is far more intimidating than any outburst of anger, because it proves that you are so high above the conflict that you don't even need to win. 40. The Midas touch of verbal adversity. You must learn the dark stoic art of taking every insult and instantly finding a way to make it profitable for your own brand, your own mission, or your own internal growth, so that the person trying to break you accidentally becomes the architect of your new, stronger self, leaving the disrespecter frustrated and confused as they realize their poison has somehow been turned into your medicine. 41. The finality of the empty throne strategy. Imagine that your ego is a throne, and when someone insults you, they are trying to pull you off it. But the most dangerous stoic warrior is the one who's already stepped off the throne and realized they are the entire kingdom, so that when the insult hits the throne, it hits nothing but air, leaving the aggressor fighting a shadow while you, the true king, are already miles away, focused on building a legacy that will be remembered long after the disrespecter's name has turned to dust. 42. The ultimate transcendence, becoming the legend. Finally, you must realize that handling disrespect is just a small part of a much larger mission, which is to become a person of such undeniable virtue, strength, and impact that your name becomes synonymous with unshakable power, creating a legacy where people tell stories of your legendary calm in the face of chaos, transforming every insult you ever received into a chapter in the epic story of a warrior who conquered the world by first conquering himself.